The food is served. But before we begin, I'd like to say a few words. First of all, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming to this momentous occasion. Anniversaries are important things, you know. I don't think any product has gained such popularity and recognition in such a short amount of time. Shaping a generation is no easy task, but this has done just that. Reach for back pocket. Now, to... What the hell? These are my Big Brain Academy pants! Lucky break. To the 20th anniversary of Big Brain Academy, I guess. I really should have invited someone other than the mailman. That party was wild. Though, I can't help but feeling like I'm forgetting something. Oh! The Donkey Kong Country series began life on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System in November of 1994. The game was a visual marvel that won the hearts of critics and man-children everywhere. The titles from the original trilogy are all hailed as some of the best games of the era. Everyone was excited to see where the series was going next. An open casket! During the 2000s, DK was relegated to a fate worse than death. Why Nintendo never tried to hold on to one of their best development teams will always be a mystery. But right before Rare left, Nintendo purchased one Retro Studios, who would go on to make a lot of Metroid Primes. So Nintendo was stuck without their main Donkey Kong guys, which is a problem, because they're too afraid to touch the damn game. First up, we have Namco, who at the time were really desperate for money. That desperate? Well, Namco certainly had experience with both rhythm games and monkeys, so they decided to create Generational Trauma. DK bounced around for a while after that, with Conga getting 2 sequels, a couple handheld titles by Payon, and some other strange console entries. After 7 years of making 5 Metroid Prime titles, Retro Studios finally had some free time on their hands, and wanted to try making something besides Metroid. At the same time, Miyamoto had the idea to revive the Donkey Kong Country series. It was fate. Fans of Rare's Donkey Kong Country games waited incredibly impatiently for over a decade, and now they were finally getting what they had been so desperately asking for. Donkey Kong Country Returns was one of Nintendo's last major home console games before Breath of the Wild, releasing on November 21st, 2010 in North America, and early December everywhere else. Returns is a really damn good feeling precision platformer. The visuals are great and the controls are snappy, which, in my opinion, is all you need for a good DK game. It was so good, in fact, that it was ported to the 3DS by Monster Games less than 3 years later, and then got a sequel a year after that. By 2015, Donkey Kong Country had already returned twice in a relatively short amount of time, so they decided to take a nice long break. The Nintendo Switch released on March 3rd, 2017. It was the beginning of a new era for Nintendo, a less comedic and more profitable one. After the disaster that was the Wii U, Nintendo learned how to market video games to something other than fetuses. This is where some of the greatest Nintendo games of all time live, probably because the Switch has almost all of them. The Nintendo Switch is actually what brought me into the world of gaming. I mean, sure, my earliest memory is playing on my cousin's Wii U, but that kind of thing was a rare treat that I didn't get to do often. That Switch, though, that was all mine. Mostly. As the years went on, I learned more and more about Nintendo, and just about the gaming world in general. By 2021, I had started watching Nintendo Directs. By 2022, buying new games around launch. And by 2023, I was actually going outside. to get to indoor Nintendo events. By 2024, the Switch had started to lose steam. 2023 was home to so many system-defining titles, and was then promptly followed by games you can't even remember. Seriously, name one! Okay, it's not that hard, but I highly doubt you said Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. It was clear that Nintendo was preparing for something big, with many of these games likely have been being finished for multiple years, but just not revealed until now. Then, during a Direct in 2024, Nintendo revealed what we had all been waiting for.
Donkey Kong.
That makes 3. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD was to be released on January 16th, 2025. And when I woke up that morning to go pick it up, What were we talking about again? Larger screen, less colors, Mario Kart, what number are we on again? Finally, what me and so many other Nintendo fans have been dreaming about for years! A Switch 2! And it was releasing quick, only 4.5 months with a dedicated Direct on the way. Nintendo was trying to sell this thing, and fast. Probably because their previous console was old. Nintendo laid out their entire release schedule for 2025, with headlines such as Kirby Air Riders and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, showing how all the patience during 2024 was finally paying off. The only question left really was when?
Nintendo Switch 2 launches on June 5th.
Thank you, Nintendo! Oh, and also how much? Damn you, Nintendo! 2 months and $500 later, I was enjoying system settings. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about the launch of the Switch 2. First off, pre-ordering was crazy. On Nintendo's website, you could reserve a spot to purchase one, but reservations were incredibly hard to get. And major retailers weren't much better, with the initial pre-order date getting pushed back by 2 weeks to 9 p.m. PST on April 23rd. And when pre-orders finally did go live, it was a bloodbath. Most websites crashed or sold out instantly, Best Buy was half an hour late, and GameStop just let you do it in person the next morning. In the end, I secured 1 from Target and 2 from Best Buy, which was just a result of me spamming the Add to Cart button on multiple websites. However, I would actually end up returning all of these, as I did my shopping somewhere else. The Nintendo San Francisco store opened less than a month before the Switch 2 launched, on May 15th, 2025. I'm lucky enough to live in California, and better yet, within driving distance of the Nintendo store. I made it to the grand opening, which was a whole other amazing experience, but it will never hold a candle to June 4th. The launch event was crazy. They disbanded the line for the Switch 2 6 times. 6 times! This is because the store was still operating normally until the launch that night. I stuck it through the whole time though, and the rewards were worth it. Mario Kart World posters, Switch 2 hats, Daniel Alba's business card. I stole this. And at the end of it all, I got my well-deserved Switch 2. Really? 3 hats? What a rush, buying damn near everything they had to offer. I laid all the stuff I got out in front of one of the windows, and the next time I went there, it looked like this. Sorry. Now that we're all caught up on the build-up to the Switch 2, we can actually start talking about it. Mario Kart World was the main Switch 2 launch title for reasons. It was the first new game in Nintendo's most popular series in 11 years, and was so highly anticipated. The main attractions of this game are obviously the giant open world and knockout tour. It's not coin runners? The entire map of Mario Kart World is one huge interconnected island, with a lot of familiar tracks and even more new ones. The world is used wisely during regular gameplay via the routes, intestinal tracks that help you get from one course to the next during races. There's also a mode called Free Roam that lets you drive around the Mushroom Kingdom with no restraints. Free Roam is great for exploring the somewhat detailed world, as well as offering missions that you can complete to earn stickers that you barely ever get to see. Knockout Tour is an alternative to the Grand Prix, being a 6-lap marathon where the 4 lowest ranking players are eliminated after each lap. It's an incredibly fun mode that truly tests your knowledge of the courses and new mechanics. Mario Kart World introduces a variety of new movement options. These include a new boost type called the Charge Jump, which is basically just drifting but straight. If you release the jump near a wall, you can perform a wall ride, which shouldn't need much explanation. We also got the addition of rail grinding, which is rarely practical but looks sick as hell. Another massive change was the variety of new racers, such as Parabitty Buddy, Sidestepper, and of course, your favorite C-initial character, Cataquack. There are also a bunch of alternate costumes for the core Mario cast, which can be found in fast food bags across the map. What the hell even is this game? A really expensive album. Mario Kart World has well over 300 songs, with the majority of them being remixes of classic Mario tunes. This is where the real value of this game lies, and if you don't believe me, go listen to it on Nintendo Music right now. Seriously, this soundtrack is so freaking good. Like, listen to any of the Rainbow Road songs and tell me that life doesn't have meaning. Though, for all the positives Mario Kart World has, it does also garner a lot of criticism. First up, recovering from a crash. This may just be a me thing, but compared to Mario Kart 8, it feels like a lot of grace is given when you're hit with an item. Like, if you get hit by a shell, your cart will still roll forward nearly as fast as if you were driving. It takes away a lot of the skill required to maintain your placement after a bad crash. And that's another thing, this game's difficulty is all over the place. Mario Kart World has incredibly adaptive CPUs, which are a little bit too good at their job. Back in 8, it was easy to get half a lap in front of second place, but in World, you'd be lucky to not see them in your regular vision. Honestly, you probably have a better chance at winning by just doing auto everything, which, yes, includes auto item use. Another downside of Mario Kart World is the price, being $80, the most expensive Nintendo game that isn't a special edition. Nintendo cited the reason behind the price as, quote, "We just felt like it, lol. Now pay up." The real reason this game is $80 is clearly just because the Mario Kart series prints money. But a game from 2017 that was finished nearly half a decade ago doesn't feel like it's worth this much. So that's why Nintendo decided to include Mario Kart World as a paid pack-in title during the Switch 2's launch window. It was a whole $30 off of the retail price, which practically ensured that the bundle was what most consumers picked up. Don't judge me. This was really annoying because there was another game that would have made an even better pack-in title. There weren't a lot of great options. Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour is the game that everybody points to and says, that's the pack-in title we should have got. And to that I say, are you sure? The big stigma surrounding Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour is that instead of being a free pack-in title, it costs $10 on the eShop. Now when you step back and look at what the game actually is, it makes a lot more sense. Unfortunately, the internet is full of people who will just see something like this and then write up a whole brainless complaint about it. And if you're one of those people who like to complain about Welcome Tour online whilst never having played it, shut the hell up. Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour is a very niche, well, I don't want to say game. Welcome Tour is all about telling you how the Switch 2 works in a fun and engaging way. The goal is to play minigames and take quizzes on hardware specs. The minigames are decently fun and addicting, with the goal being to collect 3 gold medals per challenge. Most of the minigames use the Joy-Con 2's mouse mode, but some others use accessories like the Switch 2 Pro Controller or 4K TV. 100%ing this game is a lot more expensive than $10, I'll tell you that much. The quizzes they have are also pretty cool. First, you need to read some material on the current topic, and then answer several incorrect questions like, I swear the Joy-Con 2s are attached by the power of love.
Damn it!
There are also a lot of little tech demos throughout the game that actually do show just how cool the Switch 2 is. These definitely don't appeal to everyone, but that can be said about almost every video game. Though, Welcome Tour really only appeals to people with a lot of patience, as seen in the character select screen, the hardest part of the game. As for something with a bit more market appeal, the best-selling Zelda games. Again, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom got Switch 2 edition, meaning that they are now better. Nintendo Switch 2 editions are game cartridges that can be played on either a Switch or Switch 2, but have exclusive features when played on the latter. The Zelda's bonuses include higher resolution, a second save file, and a new, gimmicky Nintendo Switch Online service called Zelda Notes. Zelda Notes lets you scan your amiibo in extra time, send effects to Link from your phone, and the main feature helps keep your sanity while hunting for Koroks. Another benefit of Switch Online is the Switch 2 exclusive GameCube Nintendo Classics. Much like the other NSO retro consoles, this software features many fan-favorite games. This is the first Classics title where the games you play actually feel like real modern video games. Well, that's it for Nintendo-published launch titles, but there certainly were a lot more. The Switch 2 had one of the best launch lineups from any recent Nintendo system, with third-party support from the likes of CD Projekt Red and Square Enix. However, most of these were game key cards, which are a type of cartridge that, instead of having any actual game data, just have a check that tells your system to download the game. You don't need a Nintendo account to be able to download the game, merely an internet connection or other console that already has it downloaded. Meaning that if Nintendo ever did decide to shut down the game keycard servers, which I find highly unlikely, seeing as how they still have the Skyward Sword Save Data Update channel available on the Wii Shop channel, you just have to find someone with the game you're looking to play and download it off their Switch. And just like regular cartridges, you can't play the downloaded games if the keycard isn't inserted. And you can still share any game keycards between systems without issue. One of the other games I'd like to mention is Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, which out of the 14 games with a retail presence, is one of the only 5 that was actually on the cartridge. The reason most games opt to use the game keycards is because Nintendo only offered a 64GB card for the first couple months. These were also very expensive, so props to Marvelous for taking a hit for their consumers. Guardians of Azuma is a super fun action-adventure game. It's a Japanese-themed Breath of the Wild meets farming sim type game. The goal is to travel to different lands and awaken their gods, who will aid you in taking down the big boss of the game. Sound familiar at all? Moving past June 5th, there really wasn't much of anything until mid-July, and that wait felt like the longest month ever. And is also the only way I can justify this. Donkey Kong Bonanza was the highlight of July. The game follows an ape and a self-conscious girl who gets stuck inside the planet, which as it turns out, is hollow. DK is back, and going with Pauline to the center of the planet so they can return to the surface. It's a whole long convoluted story, don't ask. Donkey Kong Bonanza is the newest project from the team that made Super Mario Odyssey, Nintendo EPD4, the guys behind Donkey Kong Jungle Beat and Wii U Panorama View. Odyssey was the defining title of the original Switch's first year, and Bonanza is the same thing. This game is a great showcase of what the Switch 2 can do, mainly in its display of voxels. In Super Mario Odyssey, there are 2 instances of these voxels, which are essentially just 3D pixels. Voxels were used in Odyssey to make up the destructible snow and cheese rocks, which were always fun to play around with. And in Donkey Kong Bonanza, everything is made of voxels, which is what allows for the highly destructible stages and DK Artist mode. Another staple of the game is DK's young sidekick, Pauline. As opposed to Odyssey, here she's a 13-year-old girl who's self-conscious about her singing. She was kidnapped by the villains of the game who want to use her powerful voice for nefarious purposes. The voice acting for Pauline was great, and the singing was just as good. Jenny Kidd really crushed her role as Pauline, and I hope that this is a sign that we'll get to see her as well as more Nintendo characters being voice acted in the future. Back to the game, and slight spoilers here, but that part towards the end where my Smash main up-tilts the lesser antagonist into oblivion, that was just so beautiful. Moving on to something a lot less so, let's talk about Super Mario Party Jamboree Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Jamboree TV. Where'd everybody go? Jamboree TV is another Switch 2 Edition upgrade that costs twice as much as Breath of the Wild and still manages to offer significantly less. The Switch 2 camera is great. It's my favorite way to pirate movies. It's also the sole reason this upgrade exists. Jamboree TV is a tacked on, and I don't use this phrase often, cash grab of an expansion that only exists to get you to buy the Switch 2 camera. The Carnival Coaster is quite literally an on-rails shooter that focuses on mouse controls. It plays decently enough and is fun the first time you play it. You can again use the camera with it, but it really doesn't add all that much. Bowser Live was the other big selling point of the package, being a 3-round camera and microphone endurance test. That's just plain bad. This one beats out Carnival Coaster for the worst part of the edition, as it's just the same 6 minigames over and over again. And another fun thing, it doesn't matter how well you perform in those awful minigames, because the ending praise to Bowser has more weight than the previous 2 rounds combined. Couple that with the fact that I have no idea how it works, and I've never won a round of Bowser Live! Coming into August, we have the first Madden on a Nintendo platform in over 13 years, and a mouse mode showcase that launched on the same day. Drag and Drive is a game about playing basketball on wheels. But it is not wheelchair basketball. It's the latest on 3-in-3 Sports. You can't prove anything! Drag and Drive is another small eShop tech demo like Welcome Tour. And just like Welcome Tour, it's predictable. It's a fun little sports game, but it lacks replayability. I don't know how long you can just sit there rubbing Joy-Cons on your legs for, but for me, it's about 20 minutes if I'm really feeling unproductive. Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar was another marvelous release that I bought immediately and excessively. Grand Bazaar is a complete remake of the DS's Harvest Moon Grand Bazaar, and boy does it look good. You live in Zephyrtown, and grow crops and gather animal products to sell at the weekly bazaar. This easy gameplay loop is already one reason to play it whenever I have downtime, but also the fully voiced character interactions always keep the game fresh and exciting. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is one of the best Kirby games out there, and its Switch 2 edition makes it even better. It's not a problem, I can stop buying them whenever I want. Star-Crossed World is a new campaign that fits seamlessly into the main story of Forgotten Land. A big meteor crashed down from space and scattered starries, the cosmic equivalent of waddle-dees, all over the world. Star-Crossed World is a decent bit more difficult than the base game, which still isn't saying much in regards to Kirby, but it's still an appreciated change of pace. September was by far the lightest month of the Switch 2's first year, with no first-party games being released. We did, however, get the longest Nintendo Direct to date and DLC for Donkey Kong Bonanza on the same day. DK Island and Emerald Rush is a nice little paid bonus for after you beat the main story of Bonanza. It adds a new layer, DK Island, where there isn't all that much to do, but it is fun to explore. And Emerald Rush, a roguelite mode where you collect emeralds to upgrade your skill tree like you're playing Skyrim. I think Emerald Rush is a really fun challenge. And I've also sunk nearly as many hours into it as the full game, but that's besides the point. You can also earn a lot of cool rewards by playing it, like new clothes for DK and Pauline. Overall, I'd say September was pretty alright. They're lucky I'm distracted by fast-moving apes. October started out strong, with Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 for Switch, with Switch 2 pricing of $70 US. It's not relevant at all, but I just wanted to mention that. The real highlight of the month came in the form of Pokémon. Because of course it frickin' did. Pokémon Legends ZA is one of the best 7 Pokémon games I've played. And I've just gotta say, it needs some work. This is probably one of my top 2 favorite Switch 2 games so far, because it just does so much right. The characters have depth, the world has personality, and the Pokémon battling is just like it is in the anime. All the Pokémon games before the year 2010 had a third version that released a year or 2 after the originals. These would offer extra content like more Pokemon and additional story compared to the first two. From 2010 until 2019, the additional games got weird. Pokemon Black and White got full sequels, being Black 2 and White 2, while Pokemon Sun and Moon got pseudo-remasters with Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. The 2013 games, Pokemon X and Y, however, got no such special treatment. There were rumors of a cancelled third game, which would have been called, get this, Pokemon Z, that was scrapped in order to focus more on the development of Sun and Moon. Leaked documents from Game Freak, the creators of Pokemon, suggest that this was indeed the case, and that the game would have focused on the legendary Pokemon Zygarde. Well, luckily, after 12 years and 3 Pokemon generations, we finally got that third game, and with an extra letter to boot. Pokemon Legends ZA is awesome and I love it, but I also have a decent amount of complaints. ZA takes place 5 years after X and Y, so we get to see many of the same characters and even more cool new ones. Je parle assez bien français, donc je me suis bien amusé à entendre tous ces Américains stupides écorcher la prononciation de nombreux noms français. Ivor, Corbeau, Philippe, Connery, Laban, Jassant, Grisel, and Griam. The rest are just pronounced phonetically. You can thank me later. ZA takes a lot of big steps forward for the Pokemon franchise, with one example being the new battling mechanic. Gone is the traditional RPG system of old, now being replaced with real-time battles. This is just so awesome, finally getting to battle how they do in the Pokemon anime. It's just so cool! Legends ZA keeps X and Y's original gimmick of Mega Evolution, with every Pokemon that has had one in the series previously, as well as a couple new ones. One day, my beloved Rowlet. One day. Not everything in this game is megally awesome, though, as there are some instances where things could be better. Voice acting should have been in Pokemon games ever since the technology was available, and yet, nothing! In ZA, nearly all of the characters' mouths move, and yet nothing comes out. Seriously, what good reasons are there for not giving these characters speech? Is it a budget thing? Is it spite? Why, Game Freak? Why? The frickin' fist bumps. I don't like this. October was a good month. Tears of the Kingdom was the first Nintendo game I really got excited for. This is back when I was a real Zelda lore enthusiast, and I was severely disappointed when I started playing the game. The story was flat and basic during a time when Zelda fans were really looking for something more intricate. So thankfully, Nintendo had our backs. 2.5 years late. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is the missing half of Tears of the Kingdom's story. I genuinely believe that to truly get the most out of either of these, you need to play Tears of the Kingdom's intro sequence, and then a full playthrough of Age of Imprisonment, and then the rest of Tears. If you can afford it. However, Age of Imprisonment can stand on its own, and will still be an exhilarating experience even if it's your first Zelda title. Like the first two Hyrule Warriors, this game is a quick-paced hack and slash. However, unlike its predecessors, Age of Imprisonment actually adds to the greater Zelda franchise, introducing new characters and lore that won't be relevant in any future games. The gameplay is exactly what you'd expect. Good quality, standard Warriors combat. Kirby Air Riders was the highly requested sequel to the cult classic racer Kirby Air Ride, a GameCube game from 2003. And Air Riders truly was the game the fans had been hoping for. Or so I've heard. I tried to get into it, but I guess I'm just more of a Mario Kart guy. Oh, I do really like this balloon though. Overall, I'd say November was a pretty good month. Anyways, back to Donkey Kong. So after Retro Studios wrapped up Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, they kinda just dropped off the face of the earth. They only released 2 games over the next decade, being Tropical Freeze again, and a remaster of the original Metroid Prime. Well, that was because they were working on the all-new Metroid Prime game that was announced in 2017. Just kidding. Bandai Namco was reported to be developing this new Metroid Prime. the first of many poor decisions made during this game's development. However, they were dropped after just 2 years of development due to the lack of quality Nintendo had seen in the project. So bring in Retro Studios, the ones who should have been developing this game in the first place. Nearly the entire project was restarted, with only a few things from the cancelled game remaining. One of the persisting elements was the open world section of the game. This was because Prime 4 started development in 2017, where you had massively successful open world games like Breath of the Wild. But the thing with Metroid Prime is that it needs to be a bit more maze-like and claustrophobic, or else it just doesn't feel like Metroid. Guess what happened? Mainline Metroid Prime titles have never scored below a collective 90 in ratings prior to Beyond. But the empty open world isn't the only thing that caused it. Samus's lack of personality really doesn't fit well with the rest of the characters, who, just like in Corruption, are all fully voiced. The story also suffers a bit from this, but even if Samus was more animated, it would still feel incomplete. They've been hyping up Sylux for over 20 years now, just for the reason behind his villainy to be, I screwed up one time, but I also saw Samus that day, so I hate her forever now. Like, what the heck? Another disappointing December release was some DLC for Pokemon Legends EA. Everyone hated it. Mega Dimension adds a whole bunch of new Pokemon that can only be found in an entirely different dimension. Ooh! I still haven't got too far in Mega Dimensions, but I'd like to see you fully play through Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on 3DS 4 times a week. I'm a busy guy! From what I did play though, it was kinda disappointing. The Mega Dimension you travel to is just a section of Lumio City, but now with less things to do and Pokemon that hit like a 16-wheeler. Maybe it gets better later on. I doubt it, but yeah, this is not the greatest addition to the source material. And that's how we ended 2025. An incredible year for Nintendo, with the massive success of their new console and their average Metacritic score of 80.2. Heading into 2026, January was a slow month as always, with just a small New Horizons upgrade and
a free update is coming to the Donkey Kong Country Returns HD game.
They can't keep getting away with this! This is the 4th time now! Later in January, we got Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate. On a game keycard! Oh hey, it comes with a postcard. I like this game! Final Fantasy VII is one of the few acceptable cases of game keycard usage. The game is a whopping 90 gigabytes, which, if my math is correct, doesn't fit on a 64 gigabyte card. This is the one benefit of game keycards, giving games that wouldn't ordinarily get one a physical presence. This is, however, a bit of a double-edged sword, as most of these games have massive file sizes. Final Fantasy VII is a really good remake, and was incredibly well optimized for Switch 2. This was my first experience with the Final Fantasy series, and let me just say, I am hooked. This is the first of 3 parts and one of the oldest tricks in the book. They reel you in with an incredibly polished remake of a game, and then split it up into multiple parts, causing a lot of here. February was a really disappointing month for tennis fans. Mario Tennis Fever sucks! The least creative, yet somehow most produced Mario Sports series got the honor of being the first of its kind on Switch 2. My biggest takeaways were definitely that the Fever Rackets were alright, they overmarketed the Wonder Effects side mode, and Daisy has cancer. This game, unfortunately, still follows the trends of the last couple Mario Tennis games, being tennis with Mario. Trust me, I know tennis games. And this is not a good one. The Virtual Boy was added to the Nintendo Classic service. A bit weird for sure. I mean, I'd have thought they'd bring the Pokemon Pikachu 2 GS back before this, but here we are! The Virtual Boy won't let you play on the TV, leaving you with A, whatever the hell this is, or B, a down payment on a house. I choose C. Capcom is back for the first time since launch, and they are back swinging. Resident Evil Requiem was the real pride of February, releasing to a great reception from series fans everywhere. That sounds generic enough to be right. So, I actually haven't gotten around to playing Requiem. I will eventually. I think I'll just wait for like a quiet weekend sometime. But I just can't review this game in good faith right now. So diving into March, Pokémon is back, and developed by the guys who made Age of Imprisonment. Pokémon Pokopia is Animal Crossing meets Minecraft. You play as a Ditto in a world abandoned by humans, and must discover Pokémon to help you build towns. The Pokémon you meet will give you special abilities like grass growing or digging, which will help improve your creations even more. The game does have a little issue where sometimes in handheld mode, it'll just randomly switch to 720p for a moment. It's not enough to detract from the experience, but just a little note I had. While Pokopia is a really fun time, I did get bored of it after a couple weeks, which was perfect timing for Nintendo's next release. Super Mario Bros. Wonder Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Meet Up in Bellabelle Park is the best Switch 2 Edition released yet, adding so much extra content. The full game is still here in its entirety, but now running at a native 4K. Some of the other additions to the package include a whole new world, Bellabelle Park, where you take on fun challenges, and more importantly, make the ground Waluigi. The game also adds some new characters, being the playable Rosalina and Luma, and the new boss Koopalings. The story behind them is that they stole the Bellabelle flowers, and now it's up to Mario and the gang to get them back. I'll always take the Koopalings over Bowser Jr., so it's nice to finally have them in Wonder after all these years. April was a big month for the original Switch, as it proved that this thing still had Nintendo support. For like 3 more months, but who's counting? We got Tamagotchi Life Living the Dream on April 16th, as well as another Switch 2 edition. That wasn't for living the dream. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition Nintendo Switch 2 Edition takes longer to say than it does to beat, and this is an RPG for crying out loud. X is in the same boat as Breath of the Wild in terms of the platforms it released on, being originally for the Wii U, then ported to Switch, and now getting a Switch 2 Edition. This version is totally competent. Some people say that handheld mode has a bit too much anti-aliasing going on, which is true, but only if you look really closely. May is the last full month of the Switch 2's first year, and had some standout titles, like Bluey's Quest for the Gold Pen. This is more expensive than Final Fantasy VII. Yoshi and the Mysterious Book is the jump scare! Have you ever just been hanging out on a Wednesday afternoon and not feeling like seeing hyper-realistic CG animals? Well, I hope today isn't a Wednesday. We got a whole Star Fox Direct that announced a whole new old game called Star Fox. If you thought Returns was bad, this is the 5th time we've gotten the same Star Fox. Yoshi and the Mysterious Book is the first Yoshi game of the decade, and the first good Yoshi game in over a decade. I am very biased against Crafted World. The Mysterious Book is all about going inside a big book and discovering strange creatures. It's not a traditional Yoshi game, but it's still a very good one. The main complaint a lot of people had was that you can't take damage. Does this look like the kind of game that needs that? Yoshi and the Mysterious Book is a nice, simple game that's made to introduce kids to the world of Nintendo, just like almost every other one. And yet somehow, people still manage to single this one out and act like dying was the only thing keeping the Yoshi series afloat. The point of all this being, if you have enough free time to complain about the difficulty level of a kid's game, maybe you should go hang out with those Welcome Tour guys. Whew, that was a lot of game talking. And look at that, all 11 months, and I don't frickin' know, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Yeah. Now on to Amiibo! Amiibo were first released in 2014, alongside Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. They saw massive success throughout the next year, and until Unblurring this is considered a crime in over 80 countries. After 2015, Amiibo began a steady decline, mainly being fed by the trickle of Smash Ultimate fighters releasing every year. However, with the launch of the Switch 2, something changed. Nintendo started releasing Amiibo for most of their big titles. Mario, Zelda, Kirby, and Metroid all got stunning new Amiibo figures. It truly felt like as the Switch 2 was upgraded to 4K, so were the Amiibo. The detail on some, nay, all of these figures is insane! And not to mention that they appear to be getting larger as well. Like, no matter what Samus does, she will not be confined to that base. And Capcom has also been heavily supporting Amiibo, with all but one of their Switch 2 games receiving multiple. We're also seeing new concepts introduced, like the Kirby Air Riders Amiibo that can have their riders and vehicles interchanged. The Switch 2 is truly bringing us into a more fun and experimental era. Sure, not all the games were perfect, and prices are only going up. But overall, this has been one of the best first years in Nintendo console history. More people than ever are buying and playing Nintendo games, which will only be getting better as budgets and manpower improve. Or at least that's what I'm hoping we'll get in the next year's worth of games. They're remaking Ocarina of Time? This is gonna be awesome! Wait a minute. The last time we got Star Fox, Rhythm Heaven, and Ocarina of Time all in one year was 2011. And do you know what happened the year after that? We got my favorite console of all time! We're screwed!